To our dear kababayans here in Singapore, 2020 has definitely been a challenging year for all of us. At this time of the year, when festive get-together should be the norm, the pandemic has imposed limitations and health protocols for everyone's safety. However, staying true to our mandate of ensuring the continuity of our services to the public and looking after our national interests in Singapore, the Philippine Embassy here in Singapore remains steadfast even during the height of the pandemic. Crisis situations such as COVID-19 can still be seen in a positive light if you look for it. In this case, the Embassy identified three positive takeaways from the pandemic. First, it has become an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment as public servants. Number two, it has pushed us to think creatively and out of the box. And number three, it has shown that the Bayanihan spirit and the goodness of humanity still prevails. These three positive takeaways from the pandemic will serve as an outline in highlighting the accomplishments of the Embassy for this year. The first is reaffirming our commitment to public service. When the circuit breaker measures were implemented by the Singapore government, foreign embassies were classified as providing essential services, which allowed us to continue our consular operations, albeit on a reduced scale, in compliance with social distancing rules and health protocols. From January until November 24, the Embassy has managed to process 63,795 consular transactions. Included in this figure are 28,790 passport applications, 3,007 passport validity extensions, 816 visa applications, including crew list visas, and 26,246 notarizations and authentication services. The remaining 4,936 transactions were other consular services, such as NBI processing, renunciation of citizenship, translation, and certifications. Since the launching of the Green Lane arrangement for seafarers in September 2020, we have issued 197 crew list visas for 2,581 foreign seafarers. Overseas voting registration for our kababayans also continues, and so far we have registered 2,595. We continue to encourage our kababayans to register early and exercise your right to vote for the election in 2022. As Singapore prepares to implement Phase 3 of the lifting of its circuit breaker measures, the Embassy hopes to gradually expand our services also, while still being conscious of health precautions. One of our most recent improvements in Embassy service, and we're happy to report about this, is the recent introduction of cashless payment transactions through PayNow here in the Embassy for Embassy services, effective December 1, 2020. As the pandemic displaced many of our kababayans in Singapore, the Embassy arranged 8 special flights to repatriate displaced OFWs, as well as other overseas Filipinos stranded in Singapore because of the suspension of commercial flights. This was a joint effort with Philippine Airlines, Scoot Airlines, and several travel agencies that benefited 1,739 Filipino nationals, the majority of whom were displaced workers. In addition, the Embassy facilitated 16 repatriation flights for sea-based OFWs via Air Asia. Around 756 Filipino seafarers were assisted in this initiative. This embassy also provided grocery assistance to 173 stranded kababayans who needed help financially as a result of the pandemic. The embassy's assistance to national section continued their work during the pandemic amidst the circuit breaker and even up to now as the COVID-19's impact persists. These ATN services include monitoring the number of our kababayans in Singapore infected with COVID-19, regularly issuing advisories to our kababayans, and letting them know about the latest pertinent information, and providing consular and legal assistance for non-COVID cases as well, such as police and employment cases, as well as arranging for jail visits. The ATN section, together with OWA, also assisted in the repatriation of several critically ill OFWs, including the arrangement of ambulance services to bring them to their home provinces. Our colleagues from the Philippine Overseas Labor Office, or POLO, were able to provide financial assistance for our kababayans affected by COVID-19. Around 1,800 displaced OFWs were recipients of the DOLE ACAP assistance, which amounted to US dollars 360,000. Meanwhile, 160 COVID-19 infected OFWs also received OWA Aftercare Program assistance, which amounted to 32,000 US dollars, which was disbursed for this assistance. POLO's regular services were also maintained even during the height of the circuit breaker. It was able to verify 15,603 documents of OFWs, including 12,008 contracts of HSWs, 3,120 contracts of professionals and other skilled workers, and 179 job orders that benefited 9,279 HSWs, professionals, skilled workers, and sea-based workers. Issuance of OECs continued as 4,987 were processed by POLO, while 12,882 OWA memberships were either renewed or enrolled. 80 of our distressed kababayans took shelter at the Migrant Workers and Other Overseas Filipinos Resource Center, or MWOFRC. 58 of these MWOFRC wards have been repatriated, while 2,819 OFWs were provided with repatriation assistance by POLO. Other services by POLO, such as assistance for labor-related cases, welfare assistance, capacity building, as well as SSS and Pag-ibig, continued throughout this year, despite the lockdown period. To show our appreciation to the medical frontliners here in Singapore, especially our Filipino healthcare workers, the embassy organized the donation and delivery of Jollibee meals to 220 healthcare workers at Tan Tock Seng Hospital and 300 frontliners at National University Hospital. Number 2, creative and out-of-the-box diplomacy. The pandemic has redefined how we conduct diplomacy. From personal engagements, the virtual platform has become our go-to mechanism to continue doing our work. But before the circuit breaker was implemented, the embassy was still able to organize 2 traditional physical diplomatic events. The first one, which was a collaboration with the ISIS Yusuf Ishak Institute, was our inaugural event under the latter's Philippines project. The public lecture entitled Moving Muslim Mindanao Forward was held on February 13, 2020, featuring Anak Mindanao Party List Representative Amihilda J. Sangkopan as keynote speaker. It should be recalled that ISIS Philippines project is the outcome of the donation agreement signed between the Philippine Embassy and ISIS as part of our trust to promote the pursuit of Philippine studies here in Singapore. The second one was a Centro Rizal Singapore public lecture co-organized with the Asian Civilizations Museum, featuring Professor Ambet Ocampo entitled Rizal in Singapore, The Hero as Traveler. It was held at the Ngian Auditorium of ACM on February 1, 2020, despite the public concern already building up due to COVID-19. The embassy is thankful that the lecture managed to push through and turn out to be a full house event. After these events, though, there was no way to go for physical events anymore, so everything had to turn to virtual. A three-part series of art tutorials for kids entitled Siningkuela was co-organized with Art Dialogo to celebrate the National Heritage Month in May. In June, to celebrate our Independence Day, the embassy conducted a virtual flag raising ceremony followed by a virtual concert consisting of a collection of musical video performances of Filipino artists in Singapore. For our celebration of Buwan ng Wika in August, our Central Rizal collaborated with members of the Filipino Literary and Cultural Circle in Singapore to showcase not just the rich diversity of Philippine indigenous languages, but also that of Philippine literature, through a video reading of a Philippine literature that was uploaded on the embassy's social media platforms. Webinars have become the norm, and Centro Rizal was able to collaborate with the Asia-Europe Foundation, or ASEF, through the online forum, How Relevant is Cultural Diplomacy in the Face of a Global Crisis? This was held on September 10, 2020. On November 16, 2020, Centro Rizal collaborated with Rated J and invited 3 speakers from 3 different time zones to organize the webinar entitled Writing About the Filipino Diaspora, Impact on Migration Discourse and Philippine Culture. As an advanced Rizal Day celebration, Centro Rizal also collaborated with the Philippine Bayanihan Society Singapore on December 4, 2020 to organize the webinar Kundiman ni Rizal, Dr. Jose Rizal as a poet, novelist, musician, composer, lyricist, and the Songs of the Revolution, 1896 to 1898. The embassy also organized the first virtual Filipino community meeting last August, while Polo organized a virtual Post-Arrival Orientation Seminar, or PAOS, for newly arrived HSWs for the first time in October. The embassy and Polo hope to organize more of these activities next year as part of the new normal. In the field of economic diplomacy, the Philippine Trade and Investment Center, or PTIC, continues to actively engage with its clientele, including prospective businessmen and investors, through its online media platforms. PTIC also coordinated the participation of DTI Undersecretary Rafaelita Aldaba as main speaker in the webinar Thriving in the Next Future of ASEAN, Philippines Market, organized by the Singapore Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry on September 13. The webinar discussed the Philippine investment packages and policies for over 200 interested Singapore business entities and individuals. PTIC also invited over 30 business contacts to the event. PTIC nonetheless continues to extend assistance to new and existing foreign investors interested in expanding in the Philippines, as well as extensive trade and economic promotion via online channels such as the Make It Happen in the Philippines campaign that was launched on November 24. Third, the Bayanihan spirit. Another silver lining to this pandemic was the reaffirmation of the strength of our partnership and cooperation with Singapore. This was shown through the very generous assistance that Singapore gave to the Philippines' COVID-19 response. Since March and up to November this year, Singapore's assistance, worth more than 587 million pesos, has come in various forms: test kits, PCR machines, ventilators, oxygen concentrators, and face masks. The majority of these donations were from Temasek Foundation, but the embassy also acknowledges the contributions of the Singapore Ministry of Health and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as from the Filipino community and other private individuals and groups here in Singapore. The embassy was able to facilitate the shipment of these donations from Singapore to their intended recipients in the Philippines, such as the Department of Health and local governments of the City of Manila, Quezon City, Cebu City, and Davao City. In June, the embassy also mobilized donors willing to beef up the medical supplies and PPEs to the Volunteer Filipino Medical Group and the Philippine Embassy in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. The dedicated locals caring community in Singapore and private companies such as the Andrew Gutianon Foundation of the Philinvest Development Corporation, an LT group of companies heeded the call of the embassy for various PPEs, N95 masks, and vitamins, and these were donated to Papua New Guinea in the amount of almost 2 million pesos. Physical distance did not prevent our Filipino medical frontliners in Singapore from helping out their compatriots in the Philippines. This was shown through their active participation in the informal teleconference series between Filipino medical frontliners in the Philippines and Singapore on COVID-19 response that the embassy co-organized virtually from May to July, covering important topics such as frontliner preparedness, COVID-19 treatment, non-therapeutic complementary alternative medicine, and policy discussions, pandemic preparedness. The online forum was co-moderated by Dr. Daceline Zapata, Dr. Eugene Makalinga, and Consul Gonar Musor. COVID-19 was not the only challenge that our country had to face this year. Although typhoons are no longer new to us Filipinos, the recent Typhoon Ulysses still managed to wreak major havoc among our kababayans. Many Filipino community groups and individuals in Singapore actively participated in the community-organized donation drive, which resulted in the mobilization of at least 100 balikbayan boxes worth of donations containing clothes, basic supplies, and toiletries. The donation drive ended on November 30, 2020. Post was able to coordinate the different donation efforts from our kababayans here in Singapore. In closing, I wish to thank all of our kababayans here in Singapore for their continued support for all of our projects and initiatives, as well as their understanding amidst the trying times we find ourselves in. We will continue to draw strength and inspiration from each other as we look forward to closing this very challenging year. We fervently hope and pray that 2021 will usher in a much brighter and more prosperous year for all of us and for our collective health and peace of mind. I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and good health and peace to all. Maligayang Pasko at manigong bagong taon. Mabuhay po kayong lahat.